All right, Heather, gonna work Drake a little bit. Last horse of the day. And it's like 10 p.m., but gonna get through all these guys. So here we go. Drake is kind of being typical Drake lately. Very flighty, as you can see. Partly I haven't gotten to work him a lot. I'm hoping I can work him more over these next few days. I've been doing some projects and different things. Anyway, I know there's no super big time rush on him because I know you still want him to grow quite a bit before we really ride him, fairly hard. And so I'm not in a super big rush. And so anyway, he kind of was on the back burner. Okay, he just went off by himself, so I'm just gonna ask him to go this way. A little bit crazy, probably crazier than it needs to be. Still a little bit crazy. What I love about him though right now is you can see when I ask him to stop, he's stopping on a dime. He is getting his butt in the ground and stopping. And when I ask him to go the other way, he's rocking back, throwing his shoulders over and going. So, it's a little bit crazier than I would like. I don't really want to sit on his back and just like, wah, but it's a lot better than before because if you remember with this horse or other people, if you've been watching these videos, when I'd ask him to stop, it was kind of a blah, 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 and it took him forever to get stopped, and he was kind of flailing his feet all over the place. If you watch those last 3 stops right there, man, it's whoosh and ready to go the other direction. So I think the backing and the disengaging his hind end, pushing his hind end around, and then backing and pushing his hind end around, it's really getting him to get mind control over those hind leg muscles, and it's really helping. Now the spastic stuff, I think that'll go away with harder work, basically. I think I just need to work him harder and more consistently. He's getting a crap ton of grain and straight alfalfa, and so he's just got a ton of energy. And that's who he is. He has a ton of energy. So anyway, but the fact that he's standing still right now, and this is great, pretty present. This is pretty good. I just would like him to go off a little bit calmer. Lick and chew, very good. All right, now let's go. Ooh, that might have been a little bit of locking stifle right there. That was interesting. Now, I didn't ask him to trot there, so I'm just going to ask him to stop and send him the other direction. One real big thing that I want to fix with this horse, other than the spasticness, that was a bad stop. That was more like his old stops, is when I ask him to stop here, you see how his head throws up in the air every single time I ask him to stop? That's kind of, there's a little bit of steadiness right there. I wouldn't get quite that aggressive if he wasn't a stud, but when a stud starts tossing his head like that and saying, I'm in charge, who are you to tell me what to do? I'm going to get pretty aggressive with him back. He didn't really get stopped there. I'm keeping on a pretty short rein here because he is being kind of a jerk right now. There we go. Good. So this is just typical Drake stuff. Again, like I said, this is all I think because I haven't really worked him, but I think I've worked him twice in the last like 5 or 6 days probably. So 3-4 days off. This is pretty typical Drake with a couple days off. So I'm trying not to get mad about it because I just know it's who he is and we just got to work through it. So it's not what I'm used to. And I like that he paid attention there and he checked in with me before he just flew off the handle right there. So that was good. I think I heard his stifle click right there again. So I guess he still has some of that locking stifle stuff. So what I might do to work on that a little to try to engage those muscles a little bit, let's go ahead and ask him to back up here. Yep, definitely still has some of that locking stifle issue going on. Okay, now I'm going to ask him to come forward. Good, that was nice and soft. Excellent. I'm going to ask him to disengage the hind end. Okay. And I'm gonna ask him to walk forward. He did a lot of backing there on his own. There we go. Okay, now I'm gonna ask him to back. Actually, I'm gonna ask him to soften his head first, soften his neck, and back up. Okay. And we'll go ahead and go into ground work. Better. Much better. So like I said, I'm trying to figure out how to get him to stop. Like from right here, his head and neck's pretty loose, right? He actually is carrying himself nicely. I like this frame. If I ask him to stop right here, he should bend in, disengage, and look at me. Like, stop, look at me. It should be, there's no reason for his head to go higher from where it is. But if I do this, did you see how his head popped up in order for him to come around? I don't understand why he's doing that, and I don't like things that I don't understand. And so, you know, this is why I love training horses, because there's always something new for me to learn. And I'm trying to figure out what body part is not working that causes that head. See, if I just ask him to come around, see how it pops up? It shouldn't do that. Like, no, most horses don't do that. Most horses, at least not with his level of training and experience, as they're coming around, if you just gently ask them to stop, they just come around like this, with their head nice and low. Every single time. I think maybe once that I can think of, and since the time he's been here, has he actually stopped with his head relatively low, and it was after like an hour of work. And so I'm just trying to figure out what is it that's popping his head up like that. Because I think if I can fix that, a lot of other things are going to get fixed. But right now, I just don't know what that is, what body part is causing that. See right there? Doing. It just frustrates me because I like to know answers, and I don't know the answer to that one. It could just be that right there. It could just be the fact that anytime that halter comes up tight on him, right there, his head pops up instead of relaxing. And so maybe that's a lateral reflection issue. See how I start to work up here into lateral flexion and he just absolutely loses it? So that might be, I'm gonna get the shoulder off of me. That is not okay right there. See how this rib cage is really leaning on me right now? Some part of his body has to be leaning on me just about at all times, it seems like, with this horse. So it's kind of transitioning between his face, his shoulder, his rib cage. Now it's his rib cage. Now it's his rib cage. That was a little bit better. Now it's his shoulder. There. Better. That was better. So I think actually I might have answered my question right here. I'm answering a lot of questions tonight. Because the last horse I did, and I videoed also, I had a question that I was trying to figure out, and I figured it out by the end. So answering a lot of questions tonight. I like it. So right there, you see, as I pick up on that lateral flexion, does his head stay flat or even go down, or does it pop up? And it actually pops up a little bit. It's kind of imperceptible. It's not a lot, but it does. And maybe that is what, when he's going around and he's actually moving his feet and I pick up to stop him, that was better, but it still came up, right? So hopefully the camera angle can see this. It started out flat, but then it popped up. So maybe that's where I need to work. So what I might do to work on that is this little exercise here. This is that cow turn exercise, and I'm not really doing it. There we go. I'm not really doing it so much for the cow turn portion of this, although his owner actually would like this horse to work cows, which would be pretty cool. I'm doing this more for the softness of his face. See how he's pretty high-headed through this? He's not really softening his head and neck. I don't know if that exercise is going to fix this or not. I'm kind of just playing around with different things. I mean, I don't think that anything I'm doing is going to hurt him, I mean, certainly not physically, but I mean like training wise. I don't think anything I'm doing is going to be bad for him. This is good stuff to do. Good. Whoops. I don't know if it's going to fix the issue or not, though. All right, let's ask him to stop. See, that was still just as bad as it always has been. Oh, man. I'm going to learn a lot from this horse. He may kill me in the process, but I'm going to learn a lot from him. Okay, I like that, stepping back better, but then see how kind of crazy he gets at the end? There you go. Good. That was a little bit better. So I'm not looking for that disengage. I'm looking for that step back and then to be free in the front end. But he's not actually given to these reins yet. There, he gave to that a little bit. That was kind of good. That was better. There, that was better. Okay, and I'm just gonna send him through now. You see how high that head is as he's going through? It's all up in the air. I'm gonna get rid of that if it kills me. I don't know how yet, but we're gonna get rid of it. I've got a whole toolbox of stuff to try. And if none of those work, I'll come up with some more tools. But we're gonna get rid of that head up in the air thing. Right there. That head pops up. We're gonna figure this one out. Better. So he's really running away from this rein right now is basically what he's doing. There. Just gonna send him through. It's a little bit better. Just the fact that he's not running 1,000-mile circles around me, 1,000-mile-per-hour circles around me is an improvement. Good. Now, if his head is that low and that relaxed when he's walking around, it should stay that relaxed when he stops. And that was better. That's about as good as the best one I've ever seen him do right there in terms of keeping his head and neck relaxed, and he stays and looks and chews there. That was better. I'm gonna let him stand and give him a break for a second. It wasn't perfect, but that's a great example of reward the try. So he actually tried right there to stay soft and calm through that stop. And I want him to be thinking right now, man, this is nice. I don't have to do any work at all. I just get to stand here. I wonder what created this situation. What did I do that caused this? And next time I want him to seek that out a little bit sooner. Meanwhile, I can be thinking, and you as the viewer can be thinking what you might do with your horse. What exercises did I do that led up to that working, right? You always want to be thinking about, if something works well, what did you do to get there? Not just what did the horse do to get there, but you want to be able to recreate that. So what did I do? I did quite a bit of that cow turn groundwork exercise and then sent him through, and cow turn, send him through, cow turn, send him through, until he was actually soft to that rein and moving his front end with the rein. And then I just sent him around, and I noticed that he was real nice and soft, and I just softly asked him to stop. So I just set up a scenario where he was soft and then let him stop that way. And then when he basically more or less accidentally stopped soft, I don't think he intentionally said, I'm going to be relaxed and stop soft this time. I think it was just we set up the circumstances for it to work. And once it worked, I give him a big relaxation here, a big rest. So it really writes to his brain, something I did right there was good. Now he may take the wrong lesson from it. He may say, well, this is the area in the arena where we were standing, instead of this is the body position that I had. But you start to string those together and do it a couple times, you'll figure it out. All right, I think I've given him enough of a rest there. Let's try it again. And again, I'm taking a lot of time on this. For one, I think it is very important. For another, the owner of this horse is not real in a rush for me to be riding him. She wants him to grow a little bit more. So I can ride him as soon as I'm ready to, but he's just not, there's no rush. And so I'm really taking my time trying to get his body mechanics working, trying to get his brain working. I mean, you saw when we first came in here, it was fairly crazy. And I'd like to kind of get all that gone before we ride. So, and I'm also trying to fix this locking stifle thing, really work those muscles. Like there's a pop right there. I don't know what joint that was that just popped, but that was a crack. So I know there's some musculature stuff in his hind end that needs to be improved. Anyway, let's see where he's at now. Good. I like the way he transferred a lot of the load to his hind end right there, and he pushed off. He's still a little bit of a baby in how he's doing it, but I love how low his head is. Let's just test this stop. It's pretty bad, right? I mean, he stopped. For some horses, you'd say, oh, that was great. But for him, because I'm really working on this head going up thing, he stopped with his head popping up. So let's do a little bit of backing. And he kind of stepped on his own back feet right there. He didn't quite know. Okay, now he backed up on his own. So I'm going to pull him forward, stop him. Now he swung his hind end this way, so I'm going to swing his hind end the other way. Just playing the opposite game. Okay. Now he's almost to that fence, so let's take him forward a little bit. Okay, and let's do a little bit of that cow turn exercise because that's what really seemed to help him. So this is not disengaging, or I'm not looking for disengaging. He is disengaging instead. I'm looking for him to release to this rein, rock back over his hock right there. That's what I'm looking for. So he needs to know the difference between lateral flexion, where I want his feet to stay still, disengaging, where I maybe do lateral flexion and add this foot and drive his hind end over, and I want it to be more of a forward motion, which is disengaging. And the opposite, which is lateral flexion, where I want him to rock back and go through a cow turn. So, my sport, almost lost my balance there. My sport is NRCHA, right? National Reined Cow Horse Association. I like to do reined cow horse, which includes both reining and cow work. So horses that I train for that competition, which is not necessarily this horse, but still my program, they have to know how to disengage. They have to know how to plant their hind end and do a forward motion turn around, which is your reining spin, your turnarounds. And that's a forward motion thing. And they also have to know how to do a backward motion turn, which is your cow turn. And so that's why I'm working with him on all three of those types of turns. That reining spin, reining turnaround is this. Driving that front end, that shoulder over. Whoops, kind of leaning on me right there with that rib cage and the hind end. Really leaning on me here. That's better. So that exercise pivots on his right hind foot or the inside hind foot, whereas the cow turn, I'll do it in the same direction, is going to pivot on his left hind foot. I want that hind foot to step behind him right there, and then come through the turn like that. Okay, so two very different types of turns. And I think for me, the reason I like to incorporate that in my program, even though not every horse needs to be able to do a reining spin and a cow turn, is that if they can do that, I like how he scared himself right there because he hit the lead rope with his foot and he went almost to trot because he's like, oh my gosh. And then he's like, wait a second, I don't need to do that. Anyway, if they can do both the cow turn and the reining turnaround, you know that you have really good control over both their hind end, their front end, forward motion, backward motion, everything. If they can't, it may not be a big deal for whatever discipline you're doing, but it probably has ramifications for whatever discipline you're doing. It means you don't have as good control as you could. For me, I like to have the most control possible over all our body parts. Big sigh from him. Look and chew. Very good. Let's see, I'm trying to think what else I want to do with him right now. Oh, I should probably do some loping. We haven't loped yet today. Well, I shouldn't say we haven't loped yet. He loped over there, but not out of me asking him to lope. And there's a big difference. When you're driving him up into a lope, it's a big difference than when he wants to lope, which you'll see here in a second, because when I ask him for the lope, he's not going to want to lope very much. You can see it takes me a while to get him into it, and then he wants to break out of it pretty quick. Goes into the wrong lead, or at least cross-firing, and picks up the correct one. Good. So I want him to start to find his balance in this. And I know this is a small circle, but he should be able to do it. So something I'm looking for, that's better. Keep going. Something I'm looking for in this trot and his canter is the angle of his back. So if you think of his back, go ahead and stop him here. I'm getting dizzy. If you think about the top of his back as a level plane, when he's just standing, like if he's standing square like this, his back should be flat across, right? Usually when he's walking around me, or if when a good horse is trotting and loping around you and they're in the correct frame, their back should stay flat. You don't want them to tip over like a motorcycle, right? You ride a motorcycle leaned over into your turns, but a horse shouldn't be leaned over into his turns. He should be bent around the turn, but his back should be flat. When you watch his back, Kessie was very similar to this, something we worked a lot with Kessie on. His back is tilted in towards me, so I can see the whole top of his back. Instead of it being flat like this, I'm looking at it when he's loping around. So he's really dropping the inside of his body in, and we're not going to be able to fix that a lot, I think, until I start saddling him, which I could put the saddle on now. I just don't want to mess with it right now, but big yawns, good. When I saddle him and put the bridle on, I'm going to tie his head around and have him lope with his head tied around, and he'll have to stand that shoulder up. But I'm not going to work on that tonight. Different video, different day. Big old yawns, releasing lots of tension. I like it. Remember I said how important it is to make him lope, to push him into the lope, not just have him lope like he did earlier. So you saw him lope earlier at the beginning of this session, and it didn't help him calm down at all, right? But here, when I pushed him into that lope, and he's like, crap, I don't want to lope, I want to be lazy, then you get all these yawns, and he releases all this tension. Okay, let's lope the other direction. We did a right lead lope, let's do a left lead lope. Probably tomorrow, I will go ahead and saddle him and start tying his head around, because like right now, his back is perfectly flat. So his body is upright. But when he starts loping, his body won't be upright anymore. There, his body's pretty upright, although his hip kind of dropped in a little bit, but it's still pretty upright. And there it really dives in. Not as bad as on the other side, interestingly, but it's still dived in quite a bit. So he's just not standing up his shoulder, standing up the rib cage, driving his hip up under him, all the good things. And this side's not as bad, so that's very interesting. So when he broke to the trot there for a second, his back flattened out. And then when he got back into the lope, he's really leaning over again. That was better. And then he kind of dives into it. So anyway, I'm not going to work on it a ton right now, but it's something that needs to be worked on with him a little bit. There, that's looking better. Okay. Let's do some lateral flexion. So, you know, it's interesting about his lateral flexion because I've been doing lateral flexion with this horse for a very long time. And he ought to be quite good at it. And in a way, he is. You know, he pretty much always gives to the lateral flexion, but he does it in a very tense way. And I don't exactly know how to fix it. So this is another thing I'm trying to figure out with this horse. Because usually doing lateral flexion, I'm going to do some offside, that might help. Usually doing lateral flexion to both sides makes them very nice and soft in their neck and everything. And it just doesn't with him. See how he's giving laterally, but it's all up. It's all tense. And I, you know, other than just being a stud and just being a bit of a tense horse in general, I don't know why that is. But I'll figure out how to fix it. But hey, just being real with you guys tonight, watching this video or this one and the last one I did on Louis, where I had some issues that I was working through. You know, this is horse training right here. You're never going to have all the answers. And if you do, boy, I want to know about it because that would sure be nice. But I don't have all the answers and you're never going to have all the answers. And that's what keeps horse training so much fun, is that you can continue to learn till the day you die and you'll never learn it all. Which is funny because there's so many know-it-alls in the horse industry, but nobody in the horse industry knows it all. If they're telling you they do, they're full of crap. We're all just trying to learn how to best deal with this thing we call the horse. And, you know, I think in these videos are not going to do you any good if I'm not being real with you about that. So again, like, he's giving to this lateral flexion really easily, but it's a very tense give, and I just don't know exactly what to do about that. I do think that tying his head around and having him walk trot lope with his head tied around, which, if you're curious what I'm talking about with that, I'll put up the video of it in a couple days, hopefully. But there is a video already up on my YouTube page with, well, there's one of Kessie tying her head around. I think there's one or two of Louis. There's multiple videos on my YouTube page of tying horses' heads around. And I do it very differently than most people. So if you're thinking, oh, nobody should be tying their horse's head around, that's a cruel thing to do, watch my videos on it before you criticize it, because I do it very differently than I think most people. And like every other technique I use, there is always a release point for the horse. There's always a right answer they can find where they can get away from the pressure. And good. I like how his head actually released right there. Anyway, enough about tying his head around. I like what that lateral flexion got to right there. That actually seemed to release his head and neck probably more than anything else I've done. So I think I'll go ahead and do lateral flexion on the right as well. I'm going to do offside from the right. Now, I didn't even pick that up, and he brought his head over here, which is okay, typically. But he did it in a very tight way, which I don't like. So, okay, there's left side. It's almost like I've taught him lateral flexion too well. And so I'm not getting any of the benefits out of the lateral flexion anymore, because he's doing it as a, like, I've got to do this. I've got to put my head here, instead of release his head to the rein. You see, whenever that rein touches, he braces up in the neck and then puts his head over there. Instead of just releasing all that tension, he's kind of building tension from that rein. And that's, see, same thing. That really needs to change. That may be a mistake in my training with him. I don't know. I don't know why that's happening. But that needs to change, because when I'm on the saddle and I go to touch that rein, it needs to mean relaxation to him. It shouldn't mean tense up and, oh my gosh, it's touching the rein, I got to do something, right? It just needs to be, oh, relax into it this way, or relax into it this way. That was a little bit better. It may just be that I need to spend a bunch more time in this lateral flexion and do it a lot more softly. He thought I picked it up there. That's funny. He's like, is this what you want? What if I do it without you asking? Oh, Drake, he's such a funny horse. And then he jumps like that when I just like literally shift my weight. Which I think, really the only thing that I can think that means is that he's kind of blocking me out. He's kind of going into la la land mode. And then when I move, he's like, oh my gosh, you're still there? And it's just a very like childish thing to do. Like it just shows a lack of maturity that, and he'll get that through the training, but it's like, yeah, dude, I'm still here. Like we've been doing this for an hour, like settle down, I feel like his feet are pretty stuck right now, and I think that's kind of that part of that shutdown thing. So I'm going to go ahead and ask his shoulder to step over. Good. Hey, that was actually really good. And then he feels the need to move his hind end. And then he gets all crazy about it. All he had to do was just stand there still. Okay? That was pretty good. Don't look over there. Stay here with me. And let's move your shoulder again. So he just kind of, I wouldn't say he bit me, but I would say he did as close to a bite of me as he's going to get because he knows not to do that. So he's backing very badly, not straight, not a loose head right now. So I'm just going, there we go. That was better. You can see how much tension is here, right? He's almost walking around. He's like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And then when I pick up on this lateral flexion, oh, that was actually better. That was a little bit better. It was still tense, but it was down a little bit. All right, let's do a little more of this shoulder control. Trying to run out of it. He's really so that's that study thing right there. He said, I'm done with this. I'm out. And you don't get to say that, especially being a stud, but any horse. There. Now he's like, oh, okay, I guess I have to play ball. There we go. Now he's not leaning on me quite so bad. Getting off of that. There we go. Good. So sometimes that's what it takes. I don't like just coming out here and hitting a horse. That's not my plan or my strategy or anything. But hey, when I work with a horse for an hour and give him every opportunity in the world to be good, and then I ask a simple thing that I've done 1,000 times with this horse for over a year, probably, of working with him like 2 days a week over at Middle Lake, and then had him here for a month maybe. And I'm asking for that, and he goes, no, I don't want to, and tries to stick his butt into me, and then tries to stick that face into me to try to, block me out of that space and everything. Yeah, I'm going to slap him in the face with this coil of rope. And it only took once, and he said, oh, let me behave. But I don't want to have to do that from his back. I don't want to have to over-under him from his back and potentially get into a dangerous situation. I want to correct that crap from the ground. And now he's very like, oh, okay. So it's not about me being out here beating on him for an hour. It's you know what to do. You're being extremely disobedient and disrespectful. You're going to get one quick correction, and now we're back to good. And we're buddies, right? We're buddies. Don't be bad, and that won't happen. And he's going to be a little flinchy from that, and that's expected. But now he's actually operating good. He's not pushing into me with that butt. Now, and I don't mind if he's immature and doesn't quite know how to do a body movement or something. I'll work with him all day on that, just like I did for the first hour, right? I didn't slap him because he was tense in his neck, or because he didn't quite know how to do a body movement, or even because he was running around like a crazy horse over here. None of that deserved a slap. But when I asked that shoulder to move over and he sticks this butt over at me like, hey, I might kick you, or he sticks his face into my face like blocking me out, like get the hell away from me, that's going to get a slap in the face. And if you don't like that, well, then you should probably quit watching my YouTube videos, because that's how it works. And if you don't like that, you're probably going to get hurt on a horse someday, especially if you ride studs. So I'd recommend you get out of the horse industry if you don't agree with what I'm doing right there. Just my opinion. You can do whatever you want with your horse. So he's leaning on me with this rib cage. But I don't feel that, I did kind of feel like was rude. But I don't feel like that's rude like it was earlier. I just think he doesn't quite know how to get this rib cage off of me yet. So I'm going to work with him here. There we go. That's better. There. This is that reining spin, right? And it requires this left foot to step forward right there. It requires him to pivot. Sorry, right. It requires him to pivot around his right foot. God, what am I saying? It requires him to pivot around his left foot and take his right foot forward. And what's happening right now is his right foot is getting stuck in the ground and he's forgetting to move it. And it could have to do with that locking stifle. He doesn't quite have the muscle to pick it up and move it. So what's happening is, as his front end is swinging around, he's like this, and I'm asking his front end to move. And so his right foot is getting further and further and further back, and he's getting off balance like this. And eventually he doesn't quite know what to do. And so he pushes his butt into me like that. And I think that's kind of what's happening right there. Come back. And so that's why there I didn't discipline him. I didn't hit him in the face like I did before, because that's just a matter of him being a baby and not knowing how to move his body yet. That's no big deal. I'll work with him on that. I'm just going to keep pushing this around, and he needs to learn to take that right foot and move it forward and spin around that left foot. Right there. Good. Good. Excellent. And I might ask him one more just to bring that right foot forward. There. Good. And with lateral flexion, beautiful. Now, over the next few weeks, I want that lateral flexion to get softer, but that was a good little interaction right there. He learned a lot from that. All right, let's do a little bit of going and see how he is. So I hear all the time people talk about, oh, so-and-so is a terrible person because I saw them hit a horse one time. And I'm going, well, okay, maybe. Like, there are really bad times to hit a horse. There's also times when it is what is necessary. You need to hit that horse to discipline it. Now, there's a lot of work that leads up to hitting a horse, right? Just like with a child. So a lot of people today don't believe in spanking, and well, a lot of kids today are absolute miscreants, right? Spanking is a very important part of raising a child. However, you need to do it correctly. And I always really respect the way my parents did it. They spanked us, me and my brother, but the spanking never, not one time that I can remember growing up, did I do something bad get in trouble for it, and immediately get a spanking. What would happen is I would do something bad, parents would find out, they'd chew us out, we'd be in trouble, whatnot. There might be other punishments, and then they'd say, okay, this thing that you did is deserving of a spanking. You're going to get a spanking in a few hours. And then you'd go, you get sent to your room or whatever it is. And in a couple hours, they say, all right, it's time for your spanking. We're going to do this. And then you get spanked, and then all is forgiven, move on, everybody's friends. But the key to that is that my parents, I think, I've never actually asked them about this, but I'm pretty sure they felt like if they spanked us immediately, it could be out of anger, right? If they waited 3 or 4 hours, then it's not out of anger. They had time to think about it and say, yes, here's the crime, here's the punishment, administer the punishment, move on, right? You don't want to punish out of anger. You want to punish out of, hey, teaching so that the person gets better. Punish out of love, basically, right? Now, in that situation with a horse, you do have to punish immediately. You don't have the option of waiting 4 or 5 hours. But the principle remains that if you're getting mad at your horse out of anger and I'm so mad at you, which I've done, I'm guilty of that one. That's not something that's good, but we all make mistakes. That's a mistake I've made. But you're not doing your horse any favors if you do that. Now, on the other hand, if you see that your horse did something wrong, and it's, especially with a stud, blatantly disobedient and disrespectful, and you know that the horse knows the right answer, and you've given it every opportunity to do the right answer, yes, sometimes that whack is exactly what that horse needs, and he goes, oh, got it. Okay, so hopefully you see the difference there. And so if you tell me this person's a terrible person because they hit a horse, well, I need to know the context behind it before I'm going to agree with you on that. Let's see. That was a pretty good day. I might go ahead and end there. I think for today, there's a long ways to go with this horse, but I think for today, that's pretty good. There was a locking stifle issue right there in that step he took. So he's got, I don't really want to get on this horse anytime soon because of this locking stifle thing. Not even so much because of like his size and because of needing to grow and stuff. Really, for me, it's that locking stifle thing that I want to get quite a bit better. And his attitude, obviously. He's got a lot of attitude issues that I want to get kind of resolved before I really go to start riding him. But I think for tonight, that was good. That's that 1% better every day principle. And I like the improvements we made today. So, all right, thanks for watching. I know today was kind of a tough video, but if you have any comments or questions, or I suppose if you disagree, go ahead and put a comment on my YouTube video, and we'll start a wonderful discussion in the comments. The best place to have a discussion, right? YouTube comments. But anyway, hopefully that all makes sense. And certainly if you have a question, pop it in the comments on YouTube. Like and subscribe my channel if you would. I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching.